The first thing I noticed about him was the smirk. Not the kind that makes you feel warm in Cedino. This one was carved out of arrogance and something that dared me to hate him. And I almost did. Until I couldn't. "You're kidding me, right?" I muttered, watching him toss his duffel bag into the back of my truck like he owned it. "Relax, man. It's just a bag." His voice was smooth, low, the kind that could either sell you a dream or drag you straight into hell. I gritted my teeth, gripping the steering wheel harder than necessary. This wasn't what I signed up for. I was supposed to drive 3 states over, deliver the goods for the company, and maybe enjoy a little solitude on the open road. What I didn't expect was to babysit the new delivery guy, the one who showed up with messy blonde hair, a hoodie too thin for the weather, and eyes that didn't seem to care about rules or schedules. "Are you always this charming?" I asked, putting the truck in gear. "Only when I'm with people who look like they need to loosen up." He shot back, flashing that infuriating grin again. God, I hated him already. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself as we pulled onto the highway, the late afternoon sun stretching across miles of asphalt. I turned the radio up to drown him out. But of course, he started humming along to the song, like he owned that too. His name was Ethan. I learned that when he casually dropped it mid-conversation. Like I should have already known. "Mine's Caleb." By the way, not that he bothered asking. He was the kind of guy who filled silence with himself, every word dripping with confidence. I told myself it was annoying, that it didn't matter. But the thing about long drives is, silence always wins eventually. By the second hour, the radio static got louder than the music, so I turned it off. For a while, all we heard was the hum of the engine and the wind slicing through the open windows. He leaned his head back against the seat, eyes half closed like he was too good for this world. "Why do you hate me?" he asked suddenly, like he could feel my thoughts simmering under my skin. "I don't hate you." I kept my eyes on the road. "You do." His voice was softer now, almost curious. "You've barely looked at me since we left." I let out a sharp laugh. "Maybe I just don't like distractions." "And you think I'm a distraction?" Yes. The word tasted bitter, because it was true in ways I didn't want to admit. He smirked again, but it didn't reach his eyes this time. Instead, there was something else there, something that made my chest tighten before I could stop it. Vulnerability. Maybe. Loneliness. It flickered for just a second, then vanished, like it was never there. We stopped for gas around midnight in a small town that smelled like diesel and burnt coffee. While I filled the tank, Ethan disappeared into the convenience store, coming back with 2 sodas and a bag of chips. He handed me one without a word. I wanted to refuse, but my throat was dry and my pride wasn't worth the fight. "Thanks," I muttered. "See, I'm not so bad," he said, grinning like a kid who just won a prize. I rolled my eyes, but a part of me own I'd been ignoring softened just a little. Back on the road, the night stretched around us like a black sea, headlights cutting through the darkness. He shifted in his seat, pulling his hoodie tighter around him. "Cold?" I asked before I could stop myself. "A little." Without thinking, I reached over and turned the heat up. Our fingers brushed for a fraction of a second, and the world tilted. It was nothing, just skin on skin. But the warmth lingered long after, crawling up my arm and settling in my chest. I gripped the wheel like it could keep me grounded, like it could stop this thing from spiraling. But deep down, I already knew this wasn't just a drive anymore. It was the start of something I didn't have a name for. Ethan didn't say anything, but when I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye, I caught him watching me, and for the first time all day, that grin of his wasn't smug or teasing. It was soft, almost tender, and God help me, I wanted to know what it meant. I drove through the night like a man running from something. Though I wasn't sure if it was Heimer myself I was trying to escape. Every mile that passed only made the silence heavier. And the weight of whatever this was pressed down on my chest until it hurt to breathe. By dawn, we were somewhere in Nebraska, and the sky was bleeding pink and gold. The sun broke over the horizon like a promise. But I didn't feel promised anything. Not yet. Ethan stirred beside me, blinking away sleep. His hair was a mess, sticking up in all directions, and his hoodie was pulled tight like a cocoon. He looked younger like that, softer, vulnerable in a way that made something deep inside me ache. You've been driving all night. His voice was gravelly, like the road itself. Yeah. You should have woken me. I could have taken a shift. I shook my head. Didn't want to risk my truck. He laughed, low and warm, and something in me unclenched just a little. You really don't trust me? I didn't answer, because the truth was complicated. It wasn't about trust. It was about control. About holding the wheel so I didn't have to feel the pull toward him. Caleb, he said after a while, his voice quieter, more deliberate. Why do you keep fighting me? I gripped the wheel harder. What makes you think I am? Because I see it, he said simply. Every time you look at me and then look away. Every time you start to say something and swallow it down. You think I don't notice, but I do. His words hit me like a gust of cold wind, sharp and undeniable. My throat felt tight, my pulse thudding in my ears. Stop, I said, but it came out hoarse, almost pleading. Stop what? He leaned closer, and I could feel his breath against my cheek. Warm and dangerous. Stop telling you the truth. I should have pulled away. I should have said anything that would keep the walls up. But I didn't. Couldn't. Because when I turned my head, he was right there. Blue eyes burning through me like they could strip me down to nothing. And then he kissed me. It wasn't soft. And it wasn't hesitant. It was raw. Desperate. Like he'd been holding back as much as I had. My hands betrayed me, leaving the wheel to grab his hoodie, pulling him closer until there was no space. No air. No reason left. Just the heat of his mouth. The taste of salt and soda. The sound of my own heartbeat crashing like waves. When we finally broke apart. Gasping. The truck had rolled onto the gravel shoulder. I killed the engine, leaning back against the seat, my chest heaving like I'd run 10 miles. Ethan stared at me, lips swollen, eyes wide but unafraid. Well, he said, breathless. Guess that's one way to wake up. I laughed thin, a sharp, shaky sound that broke something open inside me. And once it started, I couldn't stop. He laughed too. And just like that, the tension that had been strangling us for 2 days unraveled in the space between breaths. We sat there for a long time, watching the sun climb higher, painting the fields in shades of fire. For the first time, I didn't feel like running. Ethan, I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt. What are we doing? He shrugged, leaning back with that damn grin of his but softer now. Almost shy. Living. I shook my head, but I couldn't hide the smile tugging at my lips. You make it sound so easy. Maybe it is. His hand found mine then, tentative but sure, his fingers curling like they belonged there. You just have to let it be. I stared at our hands, at the way his thumb brushed my knuckles like he was memorizing me. And for once, I didn't pull away. The rest of the drive blurred into a haze of sunlight, laughter, and quiet touches that spoke louder than words. We made the delivery. Sure, but by then, the cargo in the back of the truck didn't matter. The real weight was in the space between us, in the way it shifted and settled into something that felt a hell of a lot like hope. That night, in a cheap motel off the interstate, we lay on separate beds at first, the TV flickering in the dark. I told myself to stay put, to keep the line we'd already crossed from disappearing completely. But when he reached for Meslo, patient, like he'd give me all the time in the world, I didn't hesitate. Our first time wasn't perfect. It was messy and awkward and real, full of laughter that turned into gasps, hands that clutched like they were afraid to let go. And when it was over, when we were tangled in sheets that smelled like detergent and something uniquely us, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore, because somewhere on that endless stretch of road, I'd stopped fighting what I felt. And in the quiet after, with his head resting on my chest and his heartbeat steady against mine, I knew this wasn't just a detour. It was the destination. I'd started this trip thinking I'd be alone, that the miles ahead would be nothing but asphalt and empty skies. But Ethan turned it into something else entirely. Something worth every wrong turn, every sleepless night, every piece of myself I didn't know I could give. And as I drifted off with his breath warm against my skin, one thought stayed clear. I thought he was just the new delivery guy. But he was so much more. He was everything. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.